the largest military force we've ever assembled. And the warning reached Earth with 5 days to spare. Commander Hyunwoo stood in the Defense Command Center buried deep under the Pacific Ocean. Around him, screens showed the approaching Vrin fleet. 300 ships, the largest military force seen in known space in 3,000 years. Hyunwoo was 45 years old and had spent his entire career preparing for an invasion that everyone said would never happen. Now it was here and he felt strangely calm. All those years of training were about to matter. "Status report," he said to his officers. "The fleet will reach Earth's orbit in 4 days," reported his tactical officer. "We have 60 ships in the home defense fleet, another 40 on their way from other systems, plus orbital defense platforms, satellites, and ground-based weapons." "Not enough," someone muttered. "It'll have to be," Hyunwoo replied. "Because this is Earth, this is home, and we don't let anyone take our home." Above ground, the civilian evacuation was already underway. Nari, a logistics coordinator, stood in a massive underground shelter helping organize the chaos. She was 30 years old and had spent her career managing supply chains for mining operations. Now she was helping save millions of lives. "Keep moving, please," she called out, guiding a stream of people toward the shelter entrances. "Families with children to the front. Medical personnel, please identify yourselves. Stay calm." A young boy, maybe 7 years old, looked up at her with frightened eyes. "Are the aliens going to hurt us?" Nari knelt down to his level. "Our soldiers are going to stop them. That's what they do. They protect us. You're going to be safe down here, okay?" The boy nodded, but he still looked scared. Nari didn't blame him. She was scared too. But someone had to stay calm, so people around her could stay calm too. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Jiwon stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the approaching enemy fleet on her screens. She had fought them once before and won, but that was 15 ships against 60. This was 100 ships against 300. The math wasn't good. "They're trying to intimidate us," she said to her officers. "Rakthos thinks we'll surrender rather than risk Earth. He doesn't understand humans very well." "Should we attempt communication?" her first officer asked. "Offer them one last chance to turn back?" Jiwon shook her head. "They came here to attack our home. There's nothing to negotiate. We fight until they leave or until we can't fight anymore." At a research facility in Antarctica, an engineer named Kwan was working on something desperate. She was 28 years old and had been considered a genius since childhood. Right now she was proposing something that most people thought was insane. "A nuclear pulse?" asked her supervisor, staring at her calculations. "You want to detonate a nuclear weapon in near-Earth space?" "A very specific nuclear weapon," Kwan corrected. "It would create an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily disables electronics in the area. Both our fleet and theirs would be affected, but our ships are designed with redundancy systems and manual backups. We can recover faster than they can. And if you're wrong, if we disable our own fleet and they recover first?" Kwan looked at him seriously. "Then Earth falls. But if we don't do something, Earth falls anyway. At least this gives us a chance." The Vrin fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 300 ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. On his flagship, Rakthos looked at the blue-green planet in the distance and smiled. "That's their homeworld," he said to his officers. "That's where they came from. Today we teach them that their death world couldn't prepare them for us." He opened a communication channel to Earth. "Humans of Earth, this is War Master Rakthos. You have interfered in Vrin affairs. You have destroyed our ships and killed our soldiers. Now you will pay the price. Surrender immediately, or we will reduce your world to ash." The response came from Admiral Jiwon. "War Master, you've made a terrible mistake. You've brought your fleet to our home. You've threatened our families, our children. Do you understand what that means?" "It means you'll surrender," Rakthos said confidently. "No," Jiwon replied, and her voice was ice cold. "It means you've given us permission to show you what we're really capable of. When we fought you before, we held back. We followed rules of engagement. We tried to minimize casualties. But you've come to Earth. You've threatened our home. There are no rules now. There is no mercy. There is only survival." She cut the transmission and turned to her fleet. "All ships, Battle Protocol Omega. Give them everything we have." The battle began at the outer defense perimeter. Vrin ships crashed into a wall of defensive satellites and orbital weapons platforms. Explosions lit up space like fireworks. Ships died on both sides, torn apart by weapons that hadn't been used in anger for 400 years. In the atmosphere, Sora led her fighter squadron in desperate defensive maneuvers. The Vryn had fighters too, and this time they were ready for human tactics. The combat was vicious. Ships twisted and turned, trying to get behind each other, trying to land killing shots. Gold 3 is down, someone shouted over the radio. Gold 7, eject, eject. Sora gritted her teeth and pushed her fighter harder. She had to protect Earth. That was all that mattered. Her missile lock chimed and she fired. Another Vryn fighter exploded. That's 12, she muttered. But there were so many more. On the ground, Commander Yunho's Marines prepared for something no one had thought possible. Ground combat on Earth itself. Several Vryn ships had broken through the orbital defenses and were heading for the surface. They're going to land? Asked one of his soldiers, shocked. They're actually going to invade Earth? Apparently, Yunho said, checking his weapon. So we're going to teach them why that's a bad idea. This is our home. Every human on this planet is a potential fighter if they need to be. The Vryn are about to fight an entire world that evolved to survive. The Vryn dropships landed in a remote area of Asia. Hundreds of soldiers poured out, expecting to face frightened civilians. Instead, they found themselves fighting human military forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. The ground itself fought against them. Hidden weapons, traps, ambushes from unexpected directions. In space, the battle was going badly for Earth. The Vryn fleet was just too large. Human ships fought brilliantly, but numbers were starting to matter. Admiral G1 watched her fleet shrink and knew they were running out of time. Contact Engineer Quan, she said quietly. Tell her to prepare her weapon. We're going to need it. Quan received the authorization and felt her hands shake. This was it. Her theory was about to be tested. If she was wrong, Earth would fall. She took a deep breath and started the activation sequence. Nuclear device armed, she reported. Detonation in 5 minutes. All ships need to prepare for electromagnetic pulse. The Vryn were winning. Rakthos could feel it. The human fleet was breaking. Earth's defenses were failing. He opened a channel to demand surrender. That's when Quan's weapon detonated. The nuclear pulse swept across the battlefield like an invisible wave. Every electronic system in range shut down. Human ships went dark. Vryn ships went dark. For 30 seconds, space was silent. Then human ships started coming back online. Their manual backup systems kicked in. Their crews, trained for exactly this scenario, began emergency procedures. Within 2 minutes, the human fleet was operational again. The Vryn fleet needed 10 minutes. And they didn't have 10 minutes. All ships, emergency attack pattern, G1 ordered. Hit them now while they're blind. The human fleet tore into the disabled Vryn ships. It was brutal and efficient. By the time the Vryn started recovering, they had lost 60 ships. The rest were scattered and disorganized. Rakthos stared at his screens in horror. How had this happened? His superior fleet had been defeated by a trick. By humans who were willing to disable their own ships just to gain an advantage. Commander Do-hyun saw his opportunity. While the Vryn command ship was still recovering, he led a boarding team aboard. They fought their way through corridors filled with confused and frightened Vryn soldiers. They reached the bridge. Rakthos stood there, surrounded by his officers, waiting. He held a weapon but made no move to use it. He looked at Do-hyun with something like respect. You've won, the War Master said. My fleet is broken. My plan has failed. Kill me and finish this. Do-hyun lowered his weapon slightly. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to give you a choice. Surrender now. Order your fleet to stand down. Accept our terms, or we continue this fight until every one of your ships is destroyed. Why offer mercy? Rakthos asked. We came to destroy your world. Because we remember what endless war looks like, Do-hyun said. We remember what happens when no one offers mercy. We remember the cost. So I'm offering you a choice. Take it. Rakthos looked around his bridge. His officers were defeated, exhausted, frightened. He thought about all the Vryn soldiers who would die if this battle continued. He thought about his people back home, waiting for news of victory. What are your terms? He asked quietly. Immediate withdrawal from Concordate space, full reparations for damages, complete disarmament of your offensive fleet, and a non-aggression treaty that both sides will honor. And if we accept these terms, then the war ends today. No more fighting. No more dying. We help you rebuild. We share technology. We become neighbors instead of enemies, Raktho. The Concordate Council chamber was completely silent. Every representative from all 47 member species sat frozen, watching the recordings of the battle. They watched human ships move like nothing they had ever seen. They watched weapons that had been banned for millennia tear through enemy vessels. They watched humans fight with a combination of precision and fury that seemed impossible. Velrix, the Council Prime, finally spoke. He was old, even for his long-lived species, and he had spent 2 centuries working for peace. "What have we done?" he asked quietly. "What have we invited into our space?" Velrin, who had first dismissed the distress signals, stood up. "We invited salvation, Council Prime. Those 40,000 refugees are alive because of the humans. We should be grateful." "Grateful?" another council member hissed. "A serpentine creature. Did you see what they did? Those weapons, those tactics, they enjoy fighting. I saw their pilots laughing during combat. Laughing while people died. Better they laugh than cry," Velrin replied. "Better they fight for us than against us." The debate raged for hours. Some species saw humans as heroes. Others saw them as dangerous predators who would eventually turn on the Concordat. Everyone agreed on one thing. Nothing would ever be the same again. Into this chaos walked Bora, Earth's diplomatic representative. She was 50 years old with kind eyes and a patient smile. She had been a teacher before becoming a diplomat. Now she had the hardest job in human history, explaining her species to aliens who had no context for what humans were. She stood before the Concordat Council and bowed respectfully. "Honored members, I come to answer your questions and address your concerns." Velrix gestured for her to continue. "Ambassador Bora, we are grateful for Earth's intervention, but we are also frightened. Your people fight with such violence, such anger. How can we trust that you won't turn that violence against us?" Bora had expected this question. "May I tell you a story about Earth?" She walked to the center of the chamber, where a hologram projector showed images as she spoke. 400,000 years ago, humans were just another animal on a very dangerous planet. Everything tried to kill us. Predators with teeth and claws, diseases, starvation, ice ages. Other humans. We survived by learning to fight. We became very good at it. The hologram showed ancient humans hunting, fighting, building. We fought each other for tens of thousands of years. Tribes against tribes, nations against nations. We built weapons that could destroy our entire world. And we almost used them. Several times Earth came very close to becoming a dead planet. The council members watched, horrified. Bora continued, her voice sad. But something changed about 400 years ago. We looked at what we had become and we were ashamed. We had the power to destroy everything and we realized we had to choose. Keep fighting and die, or choose peace and live. The hologram now showed modern Earth. Beautiful cities, green forests, humans and nature living together. We chose peace. We put away our weapons. We stopped fighting. We spent 400 years learning to be kind, to be helpful, to be good neighbors to everyone we met. But, she said, and her voice became firm, we never forgot how to fight. We kept the knowledge. We kept the weapons locked away. We kept the skills just in case. Because we learned something important. Peace only works when everyone chooses it. If even one species chooses violence, everyone needs to be ready to defend themselves. Velrix looked at her intently. "So you are saying humans are both peaceful and violent?" "We are saying humans understand both," Bora replied. "We know the cost of war. We know how terrible it is. That's why we avoid it. But we also know that sometimes fighting is necessary to protect the innocent. We don't enjoy war, but we're very good at it when we have no choice." Another council member spoke up. "How do we know you'll stop? How do we know you won't decide to conquer us once the Vryn are defeated?" Bora smiled sadly. "Because we could have conquered you at any time in the last 400 years. We had the weapons. We had the ability, but we chose friendship instead. That choice still stands. We're not here to rule anyone. We're here to help friends who asked for help." While the politicians debated, other humans were working. Medical Officer Jiho had set up a field hospital on Arcturus Station. He was treating wounded soldiers from the battle, both human and Vryn. A captured Vryn soldier lay on a medical bed, his wounds being carefully treated. He stared at Jiho with confusion. "Why are you healing me?" "I tried to kill your people." Jiho didn't look up from his work. "Because you're wounded and I'm a doctor. That's all that matters right now. But we're enemies. The war is between our leaders," Jiho said calmly. "Not between you and me." I don't know why your people attacked the Concordat. Maybe you were following orders. Maybe you believed you were doing the right thing. But right now you're just a patient who needs help. The Vryn soldier was quiet for a moment. You humans are strange. You fight like demons, then act like angels. Jiho smiled slightly. Maybe that's what makes us human. We can be both. Across the station, Minho watched his peaceful trading hub transform into a military fortress. Human soldiers were everywhere, setting up defenses, preparing supplies, coordinating patrols. The local aliens watched with mixed feelings. Some were grateful. They felt safer with human ships protecting them. Others were nervous. They had never lived around soldiers before. The sight of humans carrying weapons made them uncomfortable. Minho held a town meeting to address concerns. Hundreds of aliens filled the station's main hall. I know this is difficult, Minho said. You're not used to seeing military forces. But these soldiers are here to protect you, not threaten you. They scare my children, said one alien, a furry creature with big eyes. They walk around with guns. They practice combat drills. It's frightening. A human soldier stood up. Her name was Private Yunji, and she was barely 20 years old. I understand. We look scary. But I want you to know something. Every one of us volunteered for this mission. We chose to come here and protect you. Some of us might die doing it. And we're okay with that, because that's what humans do. We protect people who can't protect themselves. The alien blinked. You would die for us? For strangers? Yes, Yunji said simply. That's the job. That's the promise we made when we put on these uniforms. Meanwhile, back in Vryn space, Rakthos was reporting to his superiors. The defeat had humiliated him. He had lost most of his fleet to just 15 human ships. His leaders were not happy. You said they were weak, growled the High Commander, a massive Vryn with scars covering his body. You said they would be easy prey. I was wrong, Rakthos admitted, something that hurt his pride. These humans are not like the Concordat species. They're warriors, true warriors. Their tactics are unpredictable. Their weapons are devastating, and they fight like they have nothing to lose. Then we need to change our approach, the High Commander said. Study them, learn their weaknesses, and prepare for a longer war. Rakthos nodded, but inside he felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. Could the Vryn actually lose this war? Back at Arcturus Station, strategist Kyung was implementing a psychological warfare campaign. She sat in a communication center, preparing broadcasts that would be sent into Vryn space. We're not just fighting with weapons, she explained to her team. We're fighting with information. We want the Vryn to doubt themselves, to question their leaders, to wonder if this war is worth it. The broadcast showed recordings of the first battle. They showed Vryn ships being destroyed easily. They showed human soldiers treating Vryn prisoners with respect. They included messages in the Vryn language. This war is unnecessary. Your leaders are sending you to die for nothing. Choose life. Choose peace. Choose to go home. Some Vryn would ignore the messages. Some would get angry. But some would start to think. And that was all Kyung needed. If even a small percentage of Vryn soldiers started questioning the war, it would weaken their entire military. Elder Shendal finished his report on the first battle and distributed it across the Concordat. His document was titled, The Deathworlders Understanding Humanity Through Conflict. It became required reading within days. In it, he wrote, Humans are a paradox. They are capable of terrible violence but also profound kindness. They fight with emotion, which makes them unpredictable and effective. They value individual lives highly, yet they will sacrifice themselves for strangers. To understand humans, we must accept that they contain multitudes. They are not simple creatures. They are survivors of a death world, and they carry both the scars and the strength of that origin. 3 weeks after the first battle, a message arrived at Arcturus Station. It was from a Vryn splinter faction, dissidents who had never supported the invasion. They wanted to meet with Ambassador Bora in secret. Bora sat across from a Vryn female named Silthra. Between them was a table and centuries of mistrust. Why should I believe you? Bora asked carefully. Because I'm risking my life to be here, Silthra replied. Her voice was softer than most Vryn. Not all of us support this war. Some of us think Rakthos is leading our people to destruction. Then tell me what I need to know. Silthra leaned forward. Rakthos is planning something big. He believes that striking your homeworld will break human will to fight. He's gathering a massive fleet. 300 ships. The first missile hit a Vryn ship before Rakthos could even give orders to return fire. The explosion was massive, far bigger than anything the Vryn had seen before. The ship simply came apart, torn into pieces by the blast. "All ships, attack formation," Rakthos screamed into his communicator. "Kill them!" But the humans were already moving. Their ships didn't fly like normal spacecraft. They moved like hunters, like predators circling prey. They used the debris from destroyed Vryn ships as cover. They fired from unexpected angles. Nothing about their tactics made sense to the Vryn. Sora sat in her fighter cockpit, her hands steady on the controls. She was 23 years old, the youngest ace pilot in human history. She had spent her whole life training for combat that never came. Now it was here and she felt strangely calm. "Gold Squadron, follow my lead," she said into her radio. Behind her, 11 other fighters formed up. They dove toward the Vryn screening ships, small, fast vessels meant to protect the bigger warships. The Vryn fighters tried to intercept them. They were bigger, more heavily armed, but they flew in predictable patterns, following programmed tactics. Sora didn't follow any program. She flew like a human, using instinct and creativity. She rolled. Her fighter sideways, fired 3 missiles at once, then accelerated straight up. The Vryn pilot following her couldn't match the maneuver. His ship flew straight into the missile spread, another explosion. "That's 6 for me," Sora said. "Who's keeping count?" Her wingman, a pilot named Junho, laughed. "Stop showing off. Some of us want kills too." On the indomitable Admiral Jiwan watched the battle unfold on her screens. The humans were outnumbered 4-1, but they were winning. Vryn ships were dying faster than they could react. "Their tactics are too rigid," said her tactical officer. "They're fighting like it's a simulation. No adaptation, no creativity." "They've probably been winning easily for years," Jiwan replied. "Fighting enemies who never fought back. They forgot what real combat looks like." A Vryn capital ship, massive and powerful, turned its weapons toward the Indomitable. Jiwan saw it coming. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire with the main cannon. The Indomitable twisted sideways, and the Vryn shots missed by meters. Then the human ship's main weapon fired. It was a kinetic cannon, firing a solid metal slug at a significant fraction of light speed. The old-fashioned weapon hit the Vryn ship's shields and went straight through them. The slug tore through the ship from front to back, and the vessel broke in half. "Technology isn't everything," Jiwan said quietly. "Sometimes you just need a big enough rock thrown fast enough." Below, on one of the Vryn capital ships, Commander Yunho and his Marines were fighting a different kind of battle. They had used boarding pods to breach the enemy ship, and now they were fighting through the corridors. Yunho was 35, a career Marine who had spent his life training for exactly this. He moved through the enemy ship with his team, their weapons ready, their movements coordinated. A Vryn soldier appeared around a corner, bigger and stronger than any human. It roared and charged. Yunho didn't panic. He waited until the last second, then dropped low and swept the alien's legs. The Vryn crashed to the floor and another Marine finished it with a precise shot. "They're strong," Yunho said into his radio. "But they fight angry. Use that. Stay calm. Stay smart." The fighting in the corridors was brutal. The Vryn were physically superior, with natural weapons and thick scales that could stop some bullets. But humans fought differently. They used tactics that seemed crazy. They vented compartments into space, used grenades in enclosed spaces, fought hand-to-hand when they had to. One Vryn soldier, wounded but still fighting, stared at Yunho with something like fear. "You're insane," it hissed in broken galactic common. "You fight like you want to die." "No," Yunho said calmly. "We fight like we really want you to die. Big difference." Far from the battle, an old alien named Elder Shendal watched through sensor drones. He was a historian for the Concordat, and he had been assigned to document this conflict. What he was seeing shocked him to his core. Humans fought with emotion. They screamed battle cries. They protected each other with a ferocity that seemed illogical. When one human was injured, others took insane risks to save them. They fought like they cared about winning, not just for victory. but for each other. The concordate species had forgotten this could exist. They had built a civilization on pure logic and cooperation. Watching humans fight was like watching a force of nature, terrifying but also magnificent. On the refugee convoy, Taman and Hana were helping evacuate civilians while the battle raged around them. They had docked with one of the refugee ships, and now they were helping aliens into escape pods. "Move, move!" Hana shouted, guiding a family of 4 armed aliens toward safety. "We're getting you out of here." A young alien child looked up at her with big eyes. "Are the humans going to save us?" Hana paused, then smiled. "Yes, sweetie. They're going to save you." "That's what they do." The child looked confused. "But they're so scary. I saw them fighting on the screen. They're like monsters." "Sometimes," Hana said gently, "the monsters fight for you instead of against you. Come on, let's get you somewhere safe." Taman worked nearby, his hands moving quickly to repair a damaged escape pod. Around him, other refugees watched the battle on their screens. They were seeing something no concordate species had seen in 3,000 years: organized violence. Ships exploding, missiles flying, people dying. But they were also seeing something else. They saw human ships positioning themselves between the Vryn fleet and the refugee convoy. They saw human fighters sacrificing their own safety to draw enemy fire away from helpless civilians. They saw humans dying to protect complete strangers. "I don't understand," said one refugee, a blob-like creature. "Why are they doing this? We're not even the same species. Why do they care?" Taman looked at the alien. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because someone asked for help and humans don't ignore that. Ever." The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, Rakthos had lost 42 ships. The humans had lost 2, and both crews had been evacuated before their ships were destroyed. Not a single human had died. Hundreds of Vryn had. Rakthos stared at his screen in shock. How had this happened? His fleet had been superior in every way: more ships, better weapons, stronger soldiers. But the humans had torn through them like they were nothing. "Retreat," he said quietly. Then louder, "All ships retreat, get us out of here." The surviving Vryn ships fled. The humans didn't pursue. They had won what they came for. The refugee convoy was safe. On the Indomitable, Jiwan addressed both the Concordate and the Vryn on an open channel. Her face was calm, but her eyes were hard. "To the people of the Concordate, we stand with you. You asked for help, and Earth answered. We will protect you until this threat is ended." She paused, then her voice became colder. "To the Vryn, you made a mistake. You thought the Concordate was helpless, so you attacked them. You thought wrong. The Concordate has allies now. Allies who remember how to fight. Allies who come from a world that spent millions of years trying to kill them. You've awakened something that should have stayed sleeping." Another pause. "We're coming for you. We will hunt you across every system. We will find your worlds. We will break your fleets. And we will not stop until you surrender or until you're eliminated. This is your only warning. Leave Concordate space. Go home. Or learn what war really means." She closed the channel. Around her, the bridge crew was silent. "Did we do the right thing?" asked her first officer quietly. Jiwan looked at him. "We saved 40,000 innocent people today. Yes, we did the right thing." But in her private quarters that night, Jiwan sat alone and thought about the Vryn soldiers who had died. They had families too. They had lives and dreams. War made her sick, even when it was necessary, even when she was winning. This was why humans had chosen peace 400 years ago. Because they remembered what war cost. They remembered the price of victory, but they also remembered how to pay that price. And they would, if they had to. Because some things were worth fighting for. Commander Do-Yun moved through the darkness without making a sound. Behind him, 5 other humans followed, all of them wearing black armor that bent light around them. They were special forces trained for missions that officially didn't exist. For 20 years, Do-Yun had trained for wars that never happened. Now finally, his training mattered. They were inside a Vryn observation post on the edge of Concordate space. The mission was simple: watch and learn. Figure out how these aliens fought. Find their weaknesses. Through his helmet display, Do-hyun watched a Vrin soldier walk past less than 2 meters away. The creature was big, maybe 2.5 meters tall, covered in green scales. It carried a weapon that looked crude but effective. The Vrin had sharp teeth and claws. They looked like predators. But Do-hyun had studied predators his whole life. Humans were predators too. Better ones, he signaled his team. They moved deeper into the post, their cameras recording everything. After an hour, they had what they needed. They disappeared into the night, and the Vrin never knew they had visitors. Back on Earth, Admiral Ji-won listened to Do-hyun's report with a sick feeling in her stomach. They're not just conquering, Do-hyun said, his voice flat. They're hunting. I watched them kill a group of Concordate civilians who were trying to surrender. They laughed about it afterward. They're treating this like a game. Around the table sat the leaders of Earth's united government. Humans had stopped having separate countries 200 years ago. Now they were just Earth, one world with one voice. Usually they talked about trade agreements and colony expansion. Today they were talking about war. If we do this, we change everything, said one leader, an old woman from Africa. We've spent 4 centuries building trust with the galaxy. They see us as peaceful, kind. If we show them what we really are, then they'll know not to attack us, Ji-won said firmly. And more importantly, they'll know we protect our friends. A man from Asia spoke up. What about the political cost? The Concordate asked for help, but do they really understand what they're asking? We'll have to use weapons they banned thousands of years ago. We'll have to do things that will horrify them. Kyung, a young strategist sitting at the end of the table, spoke for the first time. She was only 30, but her understanding of psychological warfare was brilliant. That's exactly why we need to control the message. We don't just show up and start shooting. We make an entrance. We show the galaxy that Earth's children are not prey. We're protectors. But we're also very, very dangerous when we need to be. The debate continued for hours. Finally, they voted. The decision was unanimous. Earth would go to war. Ships started leaving Earth within days. Massive warships that had been floating in orbital graveyards for centuries were pulled down, repaired, and prepared for combat. They had names like Vengeful and Relentless and Unforgiven, names that made the Concordate species uncomfortable. Soldiers who had spent their entire careers training for nothing suddenly had purpose. They practiced combat drills with real urgency now. They checked their weapons with steady hands. They were scared, sure, but they were also ready. Taemin and Hana found themselves recruited as scouts. Their knowledge of the outer territories made them valuable. They were given a military escort and sent to map Vrin movements. When they arrived at the military staging area, both of them stopped and stared. They had never seen anything like this. Thousands of soldiers moving with perfect coordination, weapons being loaded onto ships, battle plans being discussed with cold efficiency. This is what we used to be, Taemin said quietly. Before we decided to be peaceful, a woman approached them. She wore a commander's uniform and had intelligent eyes. I'm Commander Kyung. You two are the civilian scouts, right? Yes, ma'am, Hana said, standing a little straighter. There was something about military people that made you want to show respect. Good. You'll be working with Commander Do-hyun's team. He needs people who know the region. People the locals trust. Kyung smiled slightly. Also, you'll help show the galaxy that we're not all soldiers. Some of us are still just regular people who want to help. Across the galaxy, the Vrin War Master Rakthos studied intelligence reports about Earth. His officers had intercepted human communications and translated them. What he read made him laugh. Humans talked about peace, about art and music and philosophy. Their entertainment showed them falling in love and having families. They seemed soft, weak, just another species for the Vrin to conquer. They have 15 warships heading our way, one officer reported. Should we be concerned? Rakthos showed his teeth in what passed for a smile among his kind. 15 ships? We have 60 in this sector alone. No, I'm not concerned. These humans will learn what happens to those who interfere with the Vrin Empire. He sent orders to his fleet. Crush the humans quickly, then continue the conquest of Concordate space. Make it brutal. Make it memorable. Show everyone what happens to those who resist. The human fleet moved through space toward a refugee convoy that was fleeing from Vrin attacks. 40,000 Concordate civilians were trying to reach safety. Behind them, A Vryn armada of 60 ships was closing in, preparing to destroy them. Admiral Jiwan sat on the bridge of her flagship, the Indomitable. Around her, officers worked quietly and efficiently. Everyone knew what was about to happen. After 400 years, humans were going back to war. How long until we intercept? She asked. 30 minutes, replied her navigation officer. The Vryn fleet has surrounded the convoy. They're moving in for the kill. Perfect timing, then. Jiwan stood up and walked to the communication station. Open a channel to the Vryn Warmaster. I want him to hear this personally. The channel opened. On the screen appeared Rakthos, looking amused. Are you the humans? He asked in Galactic Common. You've come a long way to die. We've come to give you one chance, Jiwan said calmly. Leave these people alone. Turn your fleet around, go home. Forget about the Concordat, Rakthos laughed. Or what, you'll fight us? You have 15 ships. I have 60. Your weapons are antiques. Your soldiers have never seen real combat. This is going to be embarrassing for you. We call our planet a death world, Jiwan said quietly. Do you know what that means? It means Earth spent millions of years trying to kill us. Diseases, predators, natural disasters, ice ages. Everything wanted us dead. But we survived. We didn't survive by being peaceful. We survived by being meaner than everything trying to kill us. Interesting history lesson, Rakthos replied. But it won't save you. I'm not trying to save us, Jiwan said. I'm trying to save you. Because in about 20 minutes, you're going to understand why the galaxy classified Earth as a death world. You're going to see what 400 years of peaceful living has been hiding, and you're going to wish you'd listened to me. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. All ships prepare for combat. Let's show them what humans can do. Rakthos stared at the blank screen for a moment. Then he shook his head and gave orders to his fleet. Destroy the humans first, then the refugees. Show no mercy. He had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had mistaken human kindness for human weakness. In 20 minutes, he would learn the difference. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect battle formation. 15 ships against 60. Every sensor in the region locked onto them. The Concordat refugees watched in terror. The Vryn fleet prepared to attack. Then Jiwan gave a simple order. Fire everything. And the galaxy learned what war really looked like. The cargo ship moved through empty space like a tired bird. Captain Taman sat in his chair, watching the stars pass by his window. His ship, the Silent Promise, carried medical supplies to the outer colonies. It was boring work, but it paid well. Next to him, Hana checked the navigation screens. She had been his co-pilot for 3 years now. Another 6 hours until we reach the station, Hana said, stretching her arms. I'm going to miss actual excitement someday. Taman smiled. Excitement is overrated. I like boring. That's when the alarm started beeping. Both of them sat up straight. Hana's fingers flew over her controls, trying to find the source. It's a distress signal, she said, her voice suddenly serious. Old military frequency. Someone's in real trouble. Taman leaned forward. Military frequencies hadn't been used in centuries. Not since humanity stopped fighting wars. Play it. The message came through broken and full of static. A voice, clearly terrified, spoke in the common galactic language. This is Research Station 12. Under attack. Unknown hostiles. They're killing everyone. Please, anyone. Then silence. Hana looked at Taman with wide eyes. Attack? That's impossible. There hasn't been a war in 3,000 years. I know, Taman said quietly. He started entering commands into his computer. But that signal was real. Someone needs help. Across the galaxy on a beautiful world called Veltara, an alien named Velrin received the same signal. He was tall and thin with feathers instead of hair. His people, the Veltar, had been part of the peaceful Concordat for 2,000 years. They were diplomats and teachers. They had never known war. Velrin studied the message with confusion. Attack, killing, these words existed in history files but not in real life. Clearly this was some kind of equipment malfunction. He filed a report recommending maintenance checks on all old communication systems, but the signals kept coming. Station after station, colony after colony, all sending the same desperate message. Something was attacking them. Something violent and terrible. On Arcturus Station, a massive space station that served as a trading hub, Governor Minho sat in his office reading reports. Arcturus was a human colony, one of dozens scattered across this region of space. Humans had spread far from Earth over the centuries, always trading, always building, always peaceful. His communicator beeped. It was Taman. "Governor, we need to talk about these distress signals," Taman said, his face serious on the screen. "I've been getting them too," Minho replied. 20 in the last hour. "The Concordat thinks it's technical problems." "It's not," Taman said firmly. "I've been analyzing the pattern. This is a real military distress code. The old kind, from when we actually fought wars." Minho felt something cold in his stomach. He had studied history. He knew what humans used to be like before they chose peace. "I'll check the archives." He spent the next hour digging through files that hadn't been opened in 400 years. Battle tactics, weapon systems, war protocols. Reading them felt like looking at a different species. Had humans really been so violent once? But as he read, something else became clear. Humans had survived because they were good at war. Very good. Earth was a dangerous planet, and humans had evolved to match it. They called it a death world in the old files. A place where everything tried to kill you, so you learned to kill back. Meanwhile, the attacks continued. The species doing the attacking called themselves the Vryn. They were reptilian, covered in thick scales with claws and sharp teeth. They came from beyond the edge of known space, and they had a simple philosophy. The weak existed to serve the strong. The Concordat species were very weak. They had no weapons, no soldiers, no way to fight back. For 3,000 years, they hadn't needed any of these things. Everyone was peaceful. Everyone followed the rules. The idea of violence was just a historical curiosity. The Vryn found this hilarious. They attacked farming worlds and stole everything. They destroyed medical ships just for fun. When the Concordat sent diplomats, the Vryn killed them and sent back recordings of their deaths. Velryn finally understood that this was real. He stood in the Concordat council chamber, surrounded by representatives from 47 different species. All of them looked frightened. "We need to respond," Velryn said. "These Vryn are a threat to everyone." "But how?" asked another council member, a blob-like creature that communicated through color changes. "We don't have armies. We don't have weapons. We don't even have words for some of the things they're doing." "Then we find someone who does," Velryn said quietly. They sent out a general distress call to the entire galaxy. It was a plea for help, translated into every known language. It admitted that the Concordat was helpless, that they needed warriors, that they needed someone who understood violence. The message reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral G1 stood in a room that hadn't been used in centuries. The War Room, they called it. Deep under the surface of Earth, protected by layers of rock and metal. The walls were covered in screens, all of them dark. Until now. She was 50 years old with gray hair and scars on her hands from a training accident decades ago. She had joined the military because her family always had, but there had never been a war to fight. Just training. Just preparation for something that would never come. Until now. She read the translated message from the Concordat 3 times. Then she read the intelligence reports about the Vryn attacks. Each report made her angrier. These Vryn weren't just fighting. They were butchering helpless civilians. They were treating sentient beings like prey animals. Her staff stood around the table, all of them reading the same reports. They looked at her, waiting for orders. Ji-won took a deep breath. For 400 years, humanity had been peaceful. They had traded with aliens, shared technology, explored the stars together. They had built a reputation as kind, friendly neighbors. Going to war would change everything. But she thought about those distress calls. She thought about the people dying while the Concordat tried to understand what violence even meant. "Activate Protocol Reaver," she said quietly. "Wake everyone up. Send messages to all military installations. Tell them we're going back to work." "Are you sure, Admiral?" asked one of her officers. "We haven't fought a real war in 4 centuries. Our ships are in storage. Our soldiers have only trained in simulations." Ji-won looked at him with hard eyes. "Humans don't forget how to fight. It's in our blood. In our bones. We come from a death world, and we survived by being the scariest thing on it." She paused. "These Vryn need to learn what happens when you wake up the monsters. Send the message to the Concordat. Help is coming." Across Earth, old systems came back to life. Ships in orbital graveyards received power for the first time in centuries. Soldiers who thought they'd never see combat suddenly had deployment orders. Factories started building weapons instead of tools. Humanity was going to war again, and the galaxy had no idea what that really meant.